All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I know the holidays. I wasn't sure how many people were going to be here or not. So just want to first start off by saying thank you. Thanks for joining us. If you do have to leave at any time, A-OK. Anybody that signed up, we're going to send out this presentation and the recording both in an email probably by the end of the day tomorrow, if not within the next 24 hours or so. So if you have to leave it all, A-OK. Want this to be as interactive as possible. So I know that if you guys have any questions, just feel free to put yourself on unmute and ask any questions, fire away. The more interactive you are, where I'm not just talking at you and we're having a conversation, the more fun it'll be for me and for you and be much more engaging. So the whole reason that we wanted to do this presentation is that so many of our clients have asked us in the past few weeks, especially, what can they do to not get acutely ill or to improve their immune function so they don't get sick for the holidays. Of course, part of that has to do with the new variant of COVID that's being talked about. And we felt like it was really important to educate all of our clients to make sure that everybody understands the importance of acute illness and what it has to do with your body's ability to heal. So number one, why it's important. And then number two, like what are some proactive things you can do if you do get sick, or proactively so you don't have to experience that acute illness? What are some things you can do overall? So those are really the points that we're going to talk about today. So quickly, just want to set some intentions. Really just want to tap into our heart center here and just take a few deep breaths and just be very grateful for our body's ability to communicate. Acute illness is like chronic illness. It's just your body's ability to communicate to you. It's the intelligence of nature, the intelligence of your body. So let's tap into that and let's just be grateful for that, for the intelligence of nature and acute illness. Here are a few things, what to expect today, what not to expect. I'm going to talk probably for the next 25 minutes or so and answer any questions at the end. Again, we're going to understand why acute illness is a positive response. We're going to learn how your immune system is interconnected with every part of your body, but especially your digestive tract. And we're going to have action steps so that you can take action steps tomorrow to improve your immune function. So ask questions, please. If you have any questions at all, just stop me. You can't hear me, anything like that. You're curious about a point, fill in the blank. Again, the more interactive it is, the more fun it is, which is important. What not to expect. I'm not going to go over any literature about COVID-19. I'm not going to express any of my own opinions about COVID-19. And it's not going to be an individualized nutrition or supplement plan for your specific case, because we treat individuals in our practice. So it is challenging for us to know specifically what you need, but we are going to give you action steps that will work for anybody listening. Okay, who am I? First of all, this is me studying abroad. I think this is in Ibiza, Spain, my sophomore year in college. I'm just going to mute a few people here. And even though I had the ability and so thankful to study abroad, during this picture, I could barely say my own first name. I've had a stammer my entire life. And it was a big challenge for me. And then I think that's really what put me on my path to heal myself. Was I knew that there were tools or resources that weren't provided to me or that I didn't know at the time that could help me speak to the point where I could actually say my name without stuttering. So I did all of the things that we educate all of our patients to do. I cut out my intolerances, worked on my self-love, detoxification, nutrition, homeopathy, all of the good stuff that we use in our practice. And I can say I'm not 100% cured of my own stammer, but my communication has greatly improved. My self-love has improved. My overall health has skyrocketed. So everything that I'm communicating with you tonight and everything that I communicate overall to any of my patients is what I do in my life. It's a direct reflection on practices, supplements, nutrition, all this jazz that we recommend. So just want to throw that out there, is that we're always walking the walk, because it's so important, because it healed myself. So we're going to talk about the basics. If you're a patient, you probably already heard this, but we're always going to start here. Such an important concept. When we're focusing on health, we're thinking about health. It's not an acute illness. It's not COVID-19, right? That's just your body's reflection of what's happening with the foundation of health. So always going back to these three pillars, even with acute illness. Number one, are you too toxic? If your body's full of external waste, then your body's own metabolic waste can't function properly. So number one, we got to take out the trash. You can't have the trash within your body and expect your cells to function the way they should. Number two, nutrition. Do your cells actually have the building blocks they need to thrive? Because if they don't, they're going to be fighting an uphill battle, and it's almost going to be impossible for your cells to function the way that they should. And number three, vitality. Like, are we doing the things that we're supposed to be doing, that our ancestors did for thousands of years, both spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically? And so even when we're acutely ill, we're going to ask these questions. Like, if you get sick, if you think you're getting sick, you're going to ask yourself, am I too toxic? Is it alcohol? Is it the holidays, right? When oftentimes do people get sick? They're stressed, either from work or like the holidays. They party too hard, they drank too much over the holidays, right? It's all coming up. So like that's the first pillar. Like, if you're too toxic and you're getting acutely ill, or you want to prevent yourself from getting acutely ill, the first thing you do is you don't intoxicate yourself with thoughts, with patterns, with alcohol, with fill in the blank, right? Number two, the next question you're going to ask yourself is, does my body have the building blocks that it needs to thrive? Nutrition, vitamins, minerals, everything that we're supposed to have to thrive. Do you have that? And the last step, I think, that we don't think about with acute illness, but I think it's important, is that, like, are you really supporting yourself? Am I supporting myself on all aspects of my life, my spiritual, my mental, emotional, and my physical bodies? When we start to ask these questions and reflect inward, it's challenging. It's like, oh my gosh, like, I have to do this. Like, I have to ask myself these questions. And if you really want to understand illness, if you really want to understand even acute infection, you got to look inward. Nobody external is going to have the answers. You're going to have the answers internally, whether you know that or not. And today we're going to help explain potentially what some of those answers are, but always want to start inward. That's the most important aspect of any part of our healing journey. So I'm not going to spend too much time here, because this is really what we do within all of our programs for all of our clients. But here is more explanation about potential opportunities or potential aspects of each pillar of health that we can assess even with acute illness, right? The first pillar, detoxification. If you're intoxicating yourself and your organs aren't able to excrete waste, it's going to be a challenge for your body to function the way that it should. Next, nutrition, right? Here are pictures of Weston Price. We talk about him a lot in our practice. He was a dentist in the 1920s and 1930s, went around a whole bunch of tribes, and he basically studied tribes that were still living off the land and compared their jaw structure and their teeth with the first generation in the same area, people that lived in an urban environment. And he found that the nutrition that traditional cultures or people that were still living off the land ate was astronomically higher than those that were in urban environments. So nutrition, right? It's not only are we not eating processed foods, but it's like, are we really consuming foods from soils that are clean? Are we really consuming structured, energetic water? Are we really supporting our bodies with the necessary nutrition that we need? Going to cover all these more in depth with acute illness, but again, just want to paint the picture about health because it's so dang important to understand the concepts before you actually dive in, and then you're just throwing tomatoes at the wall to see what sticks. And then again, vitality, right? Here are all the things we can do spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically to really help our bodies thrive. Are we making sure that we have good relationships? We're making sure that our structures align. We're making sure that we're sleeping properly, making sure that we're grounding ourselves. We're not exposing ourselves to a whole bunch of fluorescent blue light, AKA why my face looks like it's orange. So, right, all of these things are so important to our vitality, which is going to increase our cells' capacity to heal. So those are just the pillars of health. We're always going to start there. Now we're going to dive in to acute illness and what that means. So I'm going to do this. Again, if you have any questions, just unmute yourself and chime in. I can't see the chat right now. So any questions, stop me. Would love to make this more of a conversation than me just speaking at you here. So seriously, but our favorite, probably for me personally, like my favorite person to ever walk the planet, if I could meet one person that's deceased, it would be this guy right here, Henry Lindlahr. He was an ND, a chiropractor, and I believe he was also a DO that was from Chicago. He was basically the pillar of naturopathic practitioners. He had a huge sanitarium in the South Loop on Ashland, and then he had a huge sanitarium also in Elmhurst, which is the Western burbs. And he's the founder of what we call Nature Cure, which is basically reflecting and doing patterns that are in accordance with nature to help your body heal. And this quote that he uses in his most popular book that I've read a gazillion times is, every acute disease is the result of a cleansing and healing effort of nature. Just let that sink in. Like, what a powerful quote, in my opinion, because it changes the perspective on what acute disease actually is. Instead of looking at acute disease as something that you have to kill and go after and try to completely rid yourself of the rest of your life, understanding that it's actually a natural, positive response of the body. And when we try to interfere with this, which the studies prove this in and out, when we try to interfere with this process, chronic illness develops and people's outcome in their life aren't as good. A great example of this is that there's been numerous studies of children who develop childhood illness like measles naturally versus those who have gotten vaccinated. Measles is even though there's potential to die, realistically, it's not a very severe childhood illness. And those that acquire it naturally versus those that get vaccinated, so the ones that acquire it naturally, their lifespan is longer. That's just one example. Numerous studies about acute illness in children and how when we actually allow that process to happen, it allows the immune system to get strengthened, similar like exercise, which allows your immune system to function higher. So I want to start off with that. How do we change our perspective to recognize that acute illness, acute disease is actually a positive response? And so it's how do we support that versus How do we suppress that? And again, we all know this. When you first get acutely ill, what happens? You start to get inflammation. It could be a sore throat. It could be a headache. It could be fill in the blank, depending where it's happening. You start to increase in body temperature. You get a fever. You start to discharge mucus, phlegm, sweating, and you get weakness and fatigue, right? The common signs of when you're first sick. Nobody likes this. It's never a good experience. However, the first step that we're going to start with, and the first thing that you're going to do when you get acutely ill, is we're going to recognize that inflammation and fever are friends, not enemies. The father of modern medicine, who is the one that started, or that is the one that first, that we say the Hippocratic Oath, Hippocrates, says, "Give me fever and I can cure any disease." So the worst thing we can do in acute illness is suppress the fever and suppress inflammation. Tylenol, ibuprofen, that is one of the worst things that we could possibly do. And what happens when we give a child Tylenol? It lasts 4 hours. Then what happens? The fever actually spikes higher because the body responds in an intelligent way. The body's like, well, I'm trying to produce a fever to help heal the body, because when we have a fever, it stimulates the metabolism of the body. It increases the temperature, and each degree that we increase the temperature of our body's internal environment, it exponentially then allows for the bacteria and viral particles to not be in an environment to function properly. So it doesn't necessarily kill the viral or bacterial particles, but what it does, it creates an environment where they can't thrive. So the last thing we want to do is suppress. I'll say this with the caveat, is there's always a time and place for everything. So when we paint with a broad brush in health, it's like, well, hey, if a child has a fever of 106, 107, that could potentially lead to brain damage. So of course, we're going to take precautions. Here are some concerns I would have in the back of my mind for yourself, and if you have kids, for your children. If the fever is over 105, if the child's lethargic and not responding, and if the child or even yourself is not sweating. Like, those are 3 major red flags where pharmaceutical intervention has its place, and I would be concerned, and that's what I would do with my own children. But unless this is happening, which this is not that common in my experience and with my family and friends, is we want to let the fever and the inflammation ride. The more you suppress the fever, the worse outcome you're going to have, and the longer it's going to take to overcome acute illness. Bottom line. So step 1, recognize that inflammation and fever are friends, not enemies, and allow that process to take place with the understanding that there's a time and place for everything. So we're going to be aware of what's happening in the situation. Any questions so far? All right. So step 2, the second most important part when you get acutely ill is to fast. Again, another thing that may not be that popular, that most people haven't heard of or talked about. We look at every culture out there. You look at even animals. What happens when your dog is sick, when your cat is sick? I've seen some owners like literally try to force feed their animals when they're sick. Your animals intuitively know when they're sick that they shouldn't and don't want to eat. You force them food and they don't want to eat. There's an intuition within them. This is because when we're sick, by fasting, it allows our immune system, which really is located in our digestive tract, it allows our immune system to function at a higher capacity and to fight the infection internally within our cells. The reason your immune system is located in your digestive tract is because it's keeping the outside world, also known as the food you eat, It's keeping the outside world away from your internal organs. So the majority of your immune system is located here. So when you don't eat, it allows for this part of your immune system to then internally fight the infection within your cells rather than focusing on the food you're digesting. Secondly, it's important to fast because the majority of your energy throughout the day is spent digesting, absorbing, assimilating, and shipping out the food that you eat. So again, you're giving your body this capacity, this extra energy to fight the infection. So if I have any moms on here, which I know I do, your kid gets sick, please, for my own sanity, please don't feed him or her ice cream or him and her like sweets or chocolates. If your child or yourself are hungry, we're going to eat easily digestible foods, foods like chicken noodle soup with bone broth that our grandmas with love gave to us when we were sick, right? We're going to focus on easy to digest foods only when we're actually hungry and need to eat. Your body will communicate. Tune in. If it's day 2 on a fast because you've been mostly sleeping because you're acutely ill, it's great. Have some soup. Have the classic foods that we eat. But the last thing you want to do is go and eat red meat. Go and eat animal, like lots of animal proteins and fats. Like those are naturally hard to digest. And so it's going to take longer for your body to digest those. Like going to eat a raw salad when you're acutely ill is a big no-no. Like kale and those type of vegetables are hard to digest, which is why many people find them in their stool, right? So instead, we're going to eat easily digestible foods like chicken noodle soup, like soups and stews. And we're going to make sure that if we can make them ourselves, the best. If we can make them with bone broth, even better. Bone broth is going to help heal the digestive tract and provide specific amino acids to allow the immune system to function at its highest capacity. So step 1, we're going to let the inflammation, fever persist. Very important to allow the body to naturally do what it's supposed to do. Step 2, we're going to do some type of fast, hopefully just consuming water for a prolonged period of time. When you do start to eat easily digestible foods for at least 24 hours, if not longer. Ideally, it would look like this: a 48-hour water fast, which if you think about, if you really get sick, you aren't that hungry, you want to sleep the majority of the day. You sleep, you rest, you recover, you don't eat food. When you break your fast, it's some easily digestible food like some vegetable soup or maybe some chicken and rice soup, preferably with bone broth. Okay, step 3 is one of my favorite things because of the profound effects it has and because of the crazy name. This is an old hydrotherapy or old therapeutic that has been around our community for like hundreds of years. And in my experience, those type of therapies and those types of things that I can recommend to my patients that they're like, wow, who is this guy? And why is he recommending those things to me? Are usually the things that work the best. And so warming socks, one of the best things you can do. It basically helps to reflexively clear any pressure, phlegm, congestion in your, basically from your neck up, from your collarbone up. If you have a sore throat, if you have a migraine, if you have sinus congestion, if you have coughing, great treatment to do. Very easy. It's called warming socks because you first soak your feet in the bathtub, in a warm bathtub. In the meantime, you have 2 different pairs of socks, 1 pair of cotton socks, 1 pair of wool socks. You get a bowl, you put ice in there, you fill it with water, you allow the cotton socks to soak within the water while your feet are in the tub. For about 5 minutes, you let your feet soak in the tub, you dry your feet off, your feet are going to be warm at that point. You wring out the cotton socks that have been in the cold water, you wring them out, you put them on, And then after that, you basically you put on the wool socks and you go to bed. So very, very effective thing that you can do, and it drains all of the congestion within your upper airways. So I know we have the pros, so I don't know what's going on here, but so we have to finish in 10 minutes. But one of the easiest treatments you can do, here's the explanation on how to do it. Amazing treatment for anybody. Here are some specific supplements that I would recommend if you feel an illness coming on. And then the next slide is proactively what you can do with specific supplements and foods you can eat. Okay, we have a full script account that if you want to order these under our account, you can. Relatively inexpensive. It's like $100 or so to have all of these on hand, maybe like $120. I think it's wise for people to do. But you can also buy the majority of these at the store. So feel free to do either. Again, the reason that we're recommending supplements because of pillar 2, right? Nutrition. When people are sick, their composition of their blood and lymph it's not good. So these specific supplements, I'm not going to go over each one. You can basically copy and paste each one into Google, and you can find them. These are like standard process, and these are all going to be there that you can research yourself. Overall, these are going to give your body specific nutrition that it needs for your immune system to function at a high level so that the composition of your blood and lymph can be in the best case scenario. Thymex helps support your thymus, an immune gland. Cod liver oil has good fat-soluble vitamins A and D, liposomal vitamin C. Vitamin C is good for your immune system. And Immuplex has a whole bunch of good stuff as well in terms of nutrients like zinc, selenium, manganese, all of the micronutrients that we need for our immune system. Same thing here. This is what I would take proactively from about November to about March. You can take these proactively, and it's going to support your immune system, have the necessary building blocks that you need to thrive. Also, foods here I would highly recommend because they're high in zinc and selenium. Both zinc and selenium are highly depleted within our soil. So here are things you can incorporate: oysters, Brazil nuts, beef, lamb, fish, eggs, kefir, avocado. Traditional foods, like our ancestors inherently ate all of these. So when they ate these foods, they provided their bodies with the building blocks that their immune system needed to thrive. It's not rocket science. Step 5, what can we do to support our channels or organs of elimination? Here are all the ways that we can eliminate. And so here are some things you can have on hand if you get sick. Neti pot, we've all probably have heard of that, right? It's like a pot you can put in your nose and to drain your sinuses. Amazing to help your sinuses drain the mucus that has built up. Steam inhalation, you can do it in your shower, you can do it over a pot. Again, something you can do to help your lungs and to help your sinuses properly drain. Sauna is always great, right? Because we're going to help our body to sweat. We're going to increase the temperature. We're going to increase the metabolism of our body, allowing to sweat it out. And enemas, right? We want to clear our digestive tract of any potential food that's in there to allow our immune system to focus on the infection rather than digesting the food. So enemas of any kind, coffee enemas, coolemias, the things that we recommend. If you have any questions, we have plenty of resources online. Follow us on our social media platforms. We talk about all this stuff. So again, we're going to support the organs of elimination. And then the last step is vitality. Well, it makes sense, right? Here are the ones that I think are specific to acute illness. Is the first thing we want to do is make sure that our perspective is in a good spot. Do we understand that acute illness is a positive thing? Next, we're going to make sure that we're sleeping and breathing and moving and getting the sunlight and making sure that we aren't just sitting in our home blasting ourselves with our phone and Wi-Fi while we're only watching TV, while we don't breathe properly and we eat a whole bunch of food. It's the last thing you want to do, right? We want to take time to rest and recover and try to realize and recognize what our body's trying to communicate and how can we learn from the experience. A child, even though they may not have some of these like intellectual, spiritual type concepts, it's the same perspective. It's like, does a kid know that getting acutely ill is a reflection to calm down and relax, a time to just rest and recover, to do the things that we've done for thousands of years when we weren't in a culture that was go, 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 go. All of these things I think are apparent and can be used throughout your life to make sure that your immune system is strong and healthy. But also, especially when you're acutely ill, you want to be aware of all of these things so that our bodies can be in the position to heal to the highest degree. So now I would love to open it up, because we have 5 minutes left here. I would love to open it up to any questions. If you have specific individual questions, your immune system really needs some support, you can always schedule a free consultation with us, going to our website and just hitting the free consult button. We'd love to chat with you if you have any more questions, but would love to open it up here for just a second. We got 3 or 4 minutes. Would love to open it up and see if anybody has any specific questions that I can answer.
Hi, Colby. I have a question about what you said about not wanting to suppress the symptoms and like the fever and all that. I have this, I guess you'd call it a supplement. I don't know. It's called Leafy Prana. It's like a turmeric and ginger, like inflammation support. Would you consider that like suppressing when you're sick? If I was going to use that for like a headache or something?
Good question. I think that would probably be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
just
think...
something, because obviously, when you're sick and you have a headache or a sore throat, like you don't feel good and you would just want to feel better.
Yeah.
So you're thinking like just wait it out is what you're saying, like even though it hurts, like wait it out and let your body do its thing.
Well, of course, if you're in like severe pain, taking something like that can help. But again, like using all of the therapies that we just talked about, fasting, the specific supplements that I recommended, warming socks, like specifically if you ever have like a sore throat, like that works wonders. So I find that if you do like a 48-hour fast, if you do warming socks every night, and if you incorporate the 2 or 3 supplements that are on the slides, within 48 hours, you'll be pretty close to 100%.
Okay. Thank you. Are you going to be sending these slides out through email?
Yep.
Okay.
You'll have access to the recording to this and all the slides too.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Jawad, I know you have a question for me.
Hi there. Yes. So you had mentioned, bone broth. I loved all of that. I was wondering what kind of salt you would recommend. There's all sorts of different kinds of, salt, table salt, Morton's, the conventional ones, Celtic gray sea salt, Himalayan, every different color. What would you recommend if I had put some in my water just for additional hydration?
That's great. I recommend, if you're not potato intolerant, to use Redmond's real salt. That's the best salt out there. Option 2 would be Celtic sea salt. Option 3 would be Himalayan pink salt. Those would be my top 3. But the best salt on the market is Redmond real salt. However, if you're potato intolerant, I wouldn't use that.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, really appreciate everybody spending your time with us tonight. If you have any questions, just shoot us an email. We'd love to help you answer any specific questions to make sure that you feel comfortable and confident when you or your kids get acutely ill. Again, it's never a good experience, but just want to reflect that it is a natural process of the body. It's a natural process. So if we can support that and not suppress that, the outcome for the health of you and your kids, depending who's acutely ill, is only going to increase because you're flexing the immune